ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनशृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम्। श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। न जीवब्रह्मणोर्भेदः सत्तारूपेण विद्यते सत्ताभेदेन मानं स्यात् इति वेदान्तडिण्डिमः। You see, the way you look at yourself and the way you look at the world around, and also the way you look at Ishvara, all this has to change. So you want to keep your paribhasha about these three, about myself, about God, about the world. If you want to keep your paribhasha intact, then you do not have any Vedanta, you are not for Vedanta. What is the paribhasha? So I was born myself, paribhasha about myself. Paribhasha means the deep-rooted understanding about a thing. That is the paribhasha. That is how I understand. Everybody understands it that way. That is another argument in favor of paribhasha. Everybody also says the same thing. Therefore, this is how I understand myself. So this paribhasha, it's a very nice word it is. So paritaha bhashyate anena or asmin, whatever. Paribhasha. So this is what I am. And I am very sure about it. Paribhasha. This is what God is. And this is how world is. This is the paribhasha. This has to undergo a change. The entire paribhasha of the three, because this is the Vedanta. Vedanta is a triangle of these three vertices. Adhyatma, Adhibhuta and Adhidaiva. So, in all the three, we have paribhasha. For example, I was born at a given place, at a given time, to a set of parents. And now I am so and so, living at some place, married to some guy, one person. I am the father of a few children, employed by such and such. So if this is how you are sure of yourself, if you are sure of yourself, this is how, then where is Vedanta now? You know everything about yourself. Now Vedanta comes and tries to tell you about yourself, but you seem to know everything about yourself, so what is there to tell? So this paribhasha, all this list I have given, all of that is not inherent in the sense of I am. Look at the sense, I am. Birth, is it inherent in it? No. At a given place, so that is very important, you know. When you say I was born at a given place, it becomes very critical. For example, in a given situation, the region, religion, caste, creed, nation, they all bind people. So, I was born at a place, to a set of parents. So, now you are fixed into a caste, a creed, a race, a religion, everything. Everything that matters is now fixed. So, but unfortunately, or fortunately, so all of that is not inherent in the sense of I am. None of it is inherent in the sense of I am. Now, when you have so much of categorization about yourself, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that, like that, then what you look at the world also appears the same way. You are a Namarupa. So you see how people talk. So, oh, you are from India. So I was born in India. Therefore you are from India. Okay. Which state? South India or North India? So that means I am not India alone. I am something more to it. Another tag. South India. Therefore I want to know which part of India you are. Oh, South India. Good. From Karnataka or Andhra? Andhra. Oh, wonderful. So you speak Telugu. Yes. But are you Telangana or Seemandhra now? So, what I am, I project upon the world. What I am, I project upon the world. So, you believe me, please, I am not exaggerating. Suppose it doesn't cross my mind about caste, creed, race, religion, nation, nothing crosses my mind. So, what a freedom it is. It's a marvelous freedom it is. So, when you look at yourself in terms of so many categories, definitions, etc., the whole world appears, this is all Namarupa. So, the whole world appears in terms of Namarupa for us. This is the worst contradiction in the lives of students of Vedanta. So, very primary condition of that a student should fulfill is that the entire humanity is one. That is the primary condition. Then only you are talking of something else. Because that is the starting point. Because you have to move a lot forward from there. And we are stuck in various other things. Anyway, so none of these things are inherent in the sense of I am. Then what is inherent in the sense of I am? What is inherent? Satta, that is inherent. I am. You examine the I am, which means you explore yourself, you investigate yourself. I am. You see, the whole life is full of experiences. You wake up. Oh, it is a fresh morning. That is an experience. Coffee is a good coffee. That is another experience. Time to go to office, you go to office, so another experience. And come back in the evening, it is a different experience. While going to the office, going like this. Like this. While coming back from home, quick. You have to look at it. See, in India, a government runs factories in India. That is a very interesting thing. So, the people are going now, time office, they punch their card in the time office, and now they are going slowly, like zombies, they are going into the office. And now the siren will come. Siren, queen, like that siren will come. The whole village and whole town will hear that siren. I don't know why, but that is how they hear it. And when that means the end of this shift. And all people will be coming out like running. So going into the office is one kind of experience. Coming out of the office is a different experience. Every day it's a different experience. First, the payment day is one kind of experience. So last day of the month is a different experience. So life is full of experiences. So the most primordial experience, which is the foundation for all experiences that you call life. What is that? I am. You wake up, I am. Without that I am, there is nothing else in life. That is the starting point of life. And in Vedanta, we use that I am as a Mahamantra. It is Ahamasmi. The text Advaita Makaranda begins like that, Ahamasmi. In fact, Aham is Ahamasmi only. You need not say Ahamasmi. Aham. It is like I is same as I am. So that is the primordial experience. That is what you are. And to begin with, or essentially, that is what you are. And everything is a addition. So additions, whatever you add goes away. You add a caste, it goes away. You add a creed, it goes away. everything will go away. But that primordial experience, the sense, that won't go away. That remains intact. In the entire waking consciousness, that is the fundamental sense. I am. So what is it? So none of these which I have described are inherent in that sense of I am. Then what is that sense of I am? Asti. I am. That sense of satta, being. You see, hai, aham, my, in Hindi, my, hai, you have to say. But you say my whom. Suppose my awareness is impersonal. This my who is personal awareness, it is. You made yourself into a person, separate from everything else. Suppose egoless awareness, I am aware, without a center. Center is the ego. Without the center, I am aware. Then I is. That is what it is. I is. We are not talking of grammar, so it doesn't matter whether it is I am or I is. So, aham asti. Aham asti. It is same as a better improvement over aham asmi. It is one and the same. That sense of being, satta, that is what you are. First you have to settle this. If you do not settle this, then the verse cannot move forward. It gets stuck now, breaks, it does not move forward. This you have to settle first. Because when you are a body-identified person of caste, creed, race, religion, etc., that is what you see in the entire world. So you should give it up. And when I am an emotional person, happy and happy, then what I see is emotional people. I am happy, therefore I see happy people. I am unhappy, I see unhappy people. And also see happy and become jealous about them. An emotional person looks at the world in terms of emotional people. And a person given to scholarship, identification with the scholarship, he looks at the world in terms of scholarship. These are educated, these are not. These are illiterate. Like that he divides the society. So for him the society looks in terms of educated and uneducated. That is how he looks at the society. Many service organizations function based on this kind of a division of the society. First you divide the society into the noble and the ignoble, and then the noble will go and do service to the ignoble. This is another interesting thinking. So you divide, you look at the society, you look at the world. When you are looking at, you tell me how the world appears to you. I will tell you what you are. You tell me how the world appears to you. So, yeah, BJP has won, India is coming up. Oh, you are a BJP party guy. You tell me how the world appears to you. I will tell you what you are. Oh, everything is bad going on. The state is getting divided into two pieces. Very unfortunate. Oh, you are a Samaikyavadi. Some politics I am telling. So, what you are, the world appears to you that way. Because you are projecting all the time. Now, having finished all those distractions about oneself, suppose I look at myself as the pure being, ahamasmi, satta, ahamasmi. Then the whole world appears as the satta. How you look at yourself depends upon how you look at the world. You see, a child is playing, this is there in a Sanskrit drama called Murchakatikam. A child is playing with a cart, with a cart made of clay cart. That is the Murchakatikam. Murut clay, Shakatikam is a small toy cart made of clay. The boy has made a toy cart with clay. And then he is pulling it with a string, with some silly wheels and all that, it is going on. Then he asked the mother, Amma, I want to decorate my cart. Because the children want to decorate their cart. People decorate their carts. And so the mother, she has a necklace in her neck. And the child said, give me that necklace, I will decorate the cart. The mother said, if you say you will not go outside the door, I will give. He said, I will not go. So she gave it to him. And he is pulling it. Husband is sitting there. He is looking at the whole thing. In the meanwhile, a jeweler came there. These people sent message to the jeweler because they have some gold which they want to give it to him and make another necklace kind of thing. That is, he arrived there. Now this is the situation. Now the boy looks at that necklace as an ornament to his cart. The wife looks at that necklace as her important jewelry which decorates her neck. The husband also looks at necklace. His abhimana is of a different kind. He is not attached to the particular ornament, its namarupa. He is attached to how much gold it is. I gave my wife 10 tulas gold. That is his abhimana. I gave 10 tulas gold during the marriage. Of course, he took 1,000 tulas with dowry also. But 10 tulas gold he gave. And that gold is now in the form of necklace. He doesn't, as long as it is in some form. Suppose the wife changes the necklace to bangles. He doesn't mind. He doesn't care for that. But the 10 tulas gold is precious for him. That is his abhimana. It is my gold, the gold that I gave. That is his way of looking at that necklace. The jeweler saw the child playing. The moment he saw, he already recognized that it is 99.9% pure gold. He is a parikshaka. He knows what is pure gold and what is not so pure gold. He looked at it and at once he estimated that it is 99 plus pure gold. Now, these are the four people looking at the same thing in four different ways. So, in this, the gold merchant, the jeweler, he is the parikshaka. He is the real, his vision is close to the truth. So, we should be like that. We should not be like the child, we should not be like the wife, like the husband. We should be like the jeweler. He is not interested in, he is a jeweler only. He is not looking at that gold that I should get it. No, he doesn't do that. He is a wealthy man and he is a jeweler, he has a trade, he is a businessman. He is not interested in that necklace. But instantly he recognizes it as pure gold. That's why he is called parikshakaha. You should be a parikshaka. Parikshya lokan. Karmachitan brahmano nirvedamayan nastya kritah kritena. Parikshaka. So, I look at myself as the pure being. The presence, I am, is the presence. The inner presence. That is what I am. And I look at the world. It is the satta. It is the presence. Everything is a presence. Namarupa are imagined by the mind. The tree doesn't say, I am the tree. You say it is the tree. The tree is life. It absorbs carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. It functions like life. It is life, embodiment of life. That is what it is. Now, it's a tree, it is mango tree. This is all your superimposition. It is life. And the tree is the best illustration for what he is. The tree is. Ever is. You close the door and sleep overnight, and early morning you open the door, the tree is. You go to office and come back, the tree is. You should learn to see the world the right way. The tree is. In fact, it is more the is than the tree. More is than the tree. So, if you walk carelessly by closing the eyes, you won't collide with the tree. You collide with ease. And then call it that I have collided with the tree. Later you call it, after the pain is subsided, then you call, hey, what is this bump? I collided with a tree. You did not collide with a tree. You collided with ease. So, anyway, so the whole thing is satta. And then let us come to God. What is God? You see, there is no God other than the God in the form of the world. That is the God. There is no other God. The God, extra-cosmic God, is an aberration. Extra-cosmic God is not acceptable. It is where the religion and the spirituality differ. For the religionist, the God is extra-cosmic. You see, we do not have anything against Nastikas, because they are opposite to this extra-cosmic Godvadi. Astika means asti. Extra-cosmic God is. That is what he means by astika. Who is an astika? Who believes in extra-cosmic God. There is a God in Vaikuntha. One kind of astika. No, not Vaikuntha. Goloka. Vaikuntha is not important. Goloka is important. That is another astika. No, not Goloka. Kailasaloka. That is another astika. No, none of these things. There is more powerful astika. He is heaven. Another astika. No, not heaven. Paradise. He is a dangerous astika. Another astika. These are all astikas. Nastika. Who is Nastika? No, he doesn't accept any of these. That is Nastika. Like Bertrand Russell. He doesn't accept an extra-cosmic God. We don't have any problem with Bertrand Russell, because somebody asked me, what are you? Are you Astika or Nastika? I am neither. Advaitins are neither Astikas nor Nastikas. Did anybody tell you this? Advaitins are neither Astikas nor Nastikas. They are Advaitins. Really? They are Advaitins. That's why when an Astika and Astika are arguing, the Advaitin doesn't join hands with any side. He just watches from a distance. And when both neutralize each other, he abides in himself. Really. Advaitins are not Astikas. Astika means there is a God above. That is Astika. Extra-cosmic God. Astidishtam matihi. Whatever. So, therefore, in Advaita, where religion ends, there Vedanta begins. So, in Advaita, there is God, but not the way you assume, not extra-cosmic God. He is Antaryami. That is where the Upanishad begins. He is Antaryami. So, at a preliminary stage, you can worship that way. We are not against the preliminary stage, but we want to move forward. God is Antaryami. You ask Sri Krishna, where are you? Where are you? You ask Gita, you take. He said, I am in you. Hruddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. And also he said, I am all around here. All around. Agni Somatmakan Jagat. Agni and Soma. That is the Jagat. There is no third. Agni is what? Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva. I am the Agni. And Soma is what? So Gama Vishyecha, so Pushnami Chaushadhi Sarva Somo Bhutva Rasatmakaha. Agni Somatmakan Jagat. What you call Brahmadeva or the Hiranyagarbha, he is a combination of Agni and Soma. That is what he is. Jagat is Bhokta and Bhogyam. Prashnopanishad. Agni and Soma it is. Nothing else. And so Agni is God, Soma is God. There is no other God other than Agni Soma. Between wife and husband, if husband looks at wife as Bhogya, so she is the Soma, he is the Agni. But then she looks at him as Bhogya too, and therefore she is Agni and he is Soma. This is the Bhokta Bhogya. Therefore, So the entire God is the universe. God is in the universe, which amount, it is like saying gold is in the ornaments. Then what are these ornaments? If the gold pervades and interpenetrates the ornaments, it means the substance of the ornaments is gold only, then what are these ornaments? Nama-rupa. What kind of Nama-rupa they are? If the substance is gold, then what kind of Nama-rupa? They are unreal. Then why should I look at the unreal? You don't look at the unreal. Stop looking at the unreal. You are free from the desires and fears they create. I don't look at gold at all in terms of an ornament. I don't look at gold. One person offered me to make my mala. I used to have a mala. He wanted to make it into gold. Then I gave a thought to it. Of course I said no, and then I gave a thought to it. As long as I hold on to this mala, some loving person wants to make it into gold. So let me first get rid of this mala. I got rid of mala. Now there is no way of putting gold upon me, because I don't have any value for this gold. Just I means not I in general. You means not you. I means not I. So, Nama-rupa has no value. There is only gold. Parikshakaha. So I see gold. Not in terms of possessing it, or not in terms of making it into Nama-rupa, put some Nama-rupa upon it and wearing it. Not that way. So when there are no Nama-rupa, I am free from the desires and fears that the Nama-rupa create. When you see the opposites, that is Nama-rupa. When you have a desire, that is for the Nama-rupa. When you are afraid, that is because of the Nama-rupa. In the Vastu there is no fear. Only Nama-rupa makes you afraid. So, a Brahmana was going through forest, and a demon, a Brahma Rakshasa, means he is a Rakshasa who studied Veda in the earlier life. Brahma is Veda. That's why Brahma Rakshasa, he appeared there. So he appeared before. Among all Rakshasas, Brahma Rakshasa is the most dangerous Rakshasa. So he appeared before him in the forest. It is already becoming dark. He looked at the Brahmana and stopped the Brahmana. I am going to eat you. I am hungry. Then the Brahmana was about to be afraid, and then he resigned. He resigned himself. Then the Brahma Rakshasa told, are you not afraid? Yeah, it's okay. Chalta hai. I am not afraid. I am going to eat you. It doesn't matter. You can only eat my body, not me. It doesn't matter. Oh, what is that? Yeah, I am not the body. Then what are you? I am the pure being. Aham asmi. That is what I am. Then what about myself? I am the Brahma Rakshasa or not? Yeah, outwardly you are the Brahma Rakshasa, but to tell you the truth, you are also the same being. What is that being? Yeah, that is the Atma. So a discussion went on. And the Brahma Rakshasa became a student of Vedanta. And it is said that he gained the knowledge of the self and got liberated because of this Brahmana. So, therefore, it is the Nama-rupa which makes you afraid. There is no Nama-rupa. So, of what are you afraid of now? Of what are you afraid? Therefore, when you abstract the whole world of Nama-rupa, what remains is the Satta. Look at it. What a marvelous presence on my left, and presence on this side, presence on that side. That is the presence. You cannot miss the presence. It's a striking presence, because ready, among all colors, red color is very attractive. Therefore it draws your attention. It declares its presence more forcibly than anything else. But still it is presence. Until you give a name and form to it. You should stop giving name and form to a reality which is essentially nameless and formless. And so, the whole world is Satta, and that is God. God is Antaryami. He is the Satta of this universe. He is the being which is the ground for the universe. So, Emerson, the sage of the Massachusetts, he said, God is the ground of this universe, capital G. Ground means not just the ground that you are walking on, capital G. The substratum, the adhisthana, the ground of this universe is God. So when you look at like that, then I am the Satta, the universe is the Satta. What is the difference? Satta Bhede. So, but now Jiva and Ishvara are of the same league. Swami Vivekananda said, Jiva and Ishvara differ only in degree. No qualitative difference. What Jiva is, Ishvara is the same. That's why Jiva worships Ishvara. It is called anthropomorphic God. Even as you worshipping God outside of you, that God is an image that you created, that it is called image only, that you have visualized based on your conception of yourself. That is how the God you are worshipping. Therefore, the Atma, unrealized, is worshipped as Ishvara in the outside. Ishvara, realized, is no different from the Atma, which is myself. Therefore, only the lack of realization, the absence of realization, that is the ajnana. That is the only division between Jiva and Ishvara. There is no other division. Both are equally the same Satta. So you are divine. You are divine. Take it as the absolute truth. You have to do that. You are divine. So, in fact, your desire to worship God itself is an expression of your divinity. That it's, you see, you want to love another person. I love you. Means you are that love in you. You are that love within. That's why you want to love the another person. So you want to worship God because you are godly in you. And you imagine that you are something other than the God. That is your problem. So, in the real worship, you do not even experience the division. When the worship reaches its culmination, at that point, there is no division. When you look at the God and you are absorbed in that looking, darshanam they say, when there is darshanam, the God and you do not stand apart from each other. And if you stand like that, there is no darshanam. In the darshanam, you are the God and the God is you. Means the division, the wall, it collapses. There is a communion. That is what is called darshanam. And everything else is a superimposition. And therefore, you are divine. When you are joyous, that joy is divine. For whatever reason you are suffering, there could be some suffering in life. That is what life is. So even that suffering is also divine. Only thing is, you should first extricate yourself from the multiple names and forms. That primary condition is there. You have to do that. Then only you will be able to realize your divinity. So you see, Swami Vivekananda puts it in a very practical way. Vedanta is practical. You see, I tell you one thing, you have an open mind and think about it. What you accumulate in the intellect, that is not Vedanta. People have a tendency to accumulate. Did you notice this? Did I give this description? I don't know, because I am teaching the same thing both morning and evening. That's why sometimes I have to teach somewhat different in the evening. Otherwise, the same people will be sitting in the evening also. Some new people will come. So I try to make it as fresh as possible, though the same subject matter is discussed. You see, a thought process I started and I missed it. It's okay. Accumulation. That is what I was trying to say, accumulation. People have an inherent tendency to accumulate. They want to accumulate things. They want to accumulate shoes, chappals they want to accumulate. They want to accumulate everything. Chappals they want to accumulate. I used to have, in those days, he used to accumulate hankies. Hanky means a handkerchief. He used to accumulate them. Why should you accumulate handkerchief? That is what he used to do. Some people accumulate stamps. Some tendency to accumulate. And so, they continue with the tendency. It goes deeper into the person. And so now he accumulates emotions. All kinds of emotions are accumulated. People are very complex, extremely complex. Like a web, web of emotions, very interconnected emotions. So this emotion to that emotion to that emotion, this emotion, like that. So my wife, but brother-in-law is not so good. Wife is reasonably good, but occasionally she looks at my brother-in-law and looks me down. So much complex. So many complex emotions. So many emotions. They accumulate all those emotions. As children, they don't have any emotions. The children, even if they pick up a little emotion, they drop it immediately. But elders, they don't drop anything. They accumulate all the emotions. And they come to the Vedanta. They are tired of this samsara and hence come to the Vedanta, which is fine. Which is fine. If you are not tired of world, you won't come to Vedanta. So the world, in disappointing us, has done a service to us. So you should get tired of the world, totally disenchanted with it. Then you become a good Vedantin. Anyway, so come to Vedanta. And then they come with the same attitude of accumulation. And they sit before a guru. This guru has accumulated and he is ready. He is another accumulator. This is a classical gurudom in which the guru has accumulated. I knew one guru, he has accumulated so many Shivalingas. And so whosoever comes, one Shivalinga he gives. But these get exhausted. So he goes occasionally here and there and accumulates some more Shivalingas. And another guru I knew, he accumulated Rudrakshas. Everywhere Rudrakshas only. An entire car, he comes in a car, entire dicky is full of Rudrakshas. And so he will be giving Rudrakshas. And then there is another guru, he accumulated all the Prakarana Granthas. So Vivek Chudamani, Dindima, and the Upanishads, this, that, all he accumulated. And so he will be distributing them. And the student is ready to accumulate. When the guru is the accumulator, what else the student will be? He is already an accumulator to begin with, and so he will accumulate. This point is very critical and very important. So, you see, when you accumulate, you do not know. And when you know, you do not accumulate. Very critical it is. And therefore, so Swami Vivekananda used to say, this is what has put me on this line of thinking. He used to say, Vedanta is life it is. You have to live it, not accumulate it. So what you live is Vedanta. Anusthana Vedanta. There is an argument. Vedanta is not for living. Vedanta is for knowing only. I am putting exactly opposite argument. Did you notice that? Let me do it. No harm. Be a revolutionary. You have to be. You want to walk the groove-like path, you will never reach the goal. You have to be tangential in your approach. You have to be revolutionary. And you have to bring a Copernicus revolution in yourself. Then only you will know the truth. So, if you want to follow, you will not know the truth. You have to discover, not follow. And therefore, so you have to live it, the divinity. You are the divinity. How to know it? You live it. You live the divinity, be the divinity. Allow the divinity to manifest. That is what he means. You are potentially divine. Don't give some silly interpretations to those expressions. Oh, it is not potential, you are already divine. That is what he means only. He means that only. He doesn't mean anything else. He means that only. It's an expression. He is not talking of potential energy and kinetic energy. He says you are divine already. That is what he means. And you have to allow it to manifest. So, how will it manifest? So Swamiji said, you remove layer after layer of ignorance. Find out the layer of ignorance, remove it. Every time you act selflessly, you have removed one more layer of ignorance. You be egoless awareness, one more layer of ignorance is removed. So that is how the inner divinity, that is the meaning of koshas. What is kosha? Pancha kosha is what? 5 layers of ignorance are covering up the truth. Not the physical layers, that is the metaphorical expression. So, pancha kosha. No, the word kosha is not there in Upanishad, but it is there in Bhashya. In Bhashya it is there. In Upanishad also it is there. Hiranmaye pare koshe virajam brahmanishkalam. It is not about the word. It is not about the word. It is about the spirit and about the vision. And therefore, so you have to manifest the divinity in you. And the churches, the temples, the places of worship, the scriptures, the books, and all these, they are not meant for accumulation. As long as you accumulate, you won't get the truth. They are meant for manifesting that innate divinity within you. If they help you in that direction, they are doing some service, they are of some value. If not, if they are not helping you to manifest the divinity, then they have no value. You should not hesitate to say they have no value at all. So anyway, it is not about, it is nahinandanyaya. It is not about saying that they are valueless. It is about saying that you should manifest the divinity within. So that is the way in which you have to look at yourself as the presence, everything as the presence, and then eventually the division will vanish in the sense that the presence merges. This presence merges in the whole presence. The wave merges in the ocean. The bindu merges in the sindhu. That is called bhakti. Bindu sindhu nyaya. Bindu is a drop. Sindhu is ocean. That is the bhakti. Bindu so swaswarupānusandhānam bhaktirityavidhiyate. You are awareful, but awareful in a conditioned way. That egoic awareness is allowed to merge in the pure awareness. That means allow the center to dissolve. That center. So every time you have a desire, you have put a center there. The desire of the center. You are afraid, there is the center. You are jealous, there is the center. You are ambitious, there is the center. You are competitive, there is the center. So you are greedy, there is the center. And you are devoted to dualism, that means there is the center. Don't allow the center to stay so strong. Allow it to slowly dissolve. And when the center dissolves, there is only one presence. Mahatma gave an example. So there was a building, old building, and it collapsed. Before collapsing, there were 10 rooms. And 5 rooms collapsed and 5 rooms remained intact. Now, what is the difference between the space of the collapsed rooms and the space of the still standing rooms? What is the difference? There is no difference. The space of the collapsed rooms merged in the whole space. The space in the standing rooms is also merged in the whole space only, but it appears as though it is not so. Therefore, the division is only appearance. It is apparitional. There is no truth in it. I am explaining the expression satta bhede na manam syat. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, what is the division between Jiva and Ishvara? What is that divides Jiva, the presence here, and Ishvara, the presence all around? That is the Ishvara. If you say, I am the Jiva, I am the Jiva. So you see, one dualist told me, how dare you can say Jiva and Ishvara are the same? I asked, what is the problem? You see, Ishvara, Vishnu, the consort of Lakshmi Devi, you are the husband of Venkamma. How can you be the same as Ishvara? Could you follow the spirit of that dualism? So, everybody is a man with a wife, including God. So how can you say oneness? I said, what a wonderful thinking, vision you have. The way you look at God, it can never be the same. I fully appreciate that this guy who is the husband of Venkamma can never be the same as Vishnu. How can he be? Because he is the husband of Venkamma. Venkamma is an uneducated village girl from Andhra Pradesh. How can he be one with the God? He cannot be. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Jiva and Ishvara. So what is it that divides Jiva and Ishvara? This is what divides Jiva and Ishvara. I told you now. That is what divides Jiva and Ishvara. Means you fix yourself into a mold. I was, you see, one person told, Bhagavan was born in Shravana Nakshatram. Venkateswara Swami was born in Shravana Nakshatram. I was also born in Shravana Nakshatram. That is what he said. Then I said, okay, then Tattvamasi. He said, Tattvamasi. Because he was born in Shravana and you are born in Shravana. He said, no, not Tattvamasi. Why not? No, he is all powerful, whereas I am a useless guy. Aham dasaha. Dasoham. You see, Swami Ramatirtha, you know what he said? The British, you see, in India there is a prayer. Dasa, I am dasa. Dasoham. That kind of a prayer is there. Means I am a servant. So Ramatirtha said, the entire nation is praying to God, oh God, I am dasa. Therefore God came to India in the form of the British people. And so he made us live as servants for 200 years. Are you satisfied with it, or you want to do some more dasa? So that is what he said. Therefore, what is the difference? What is that divides Jiva and Ishvara? What is it? So Sri Ramakrishna was considering this. He gave an example. In the river of Ganga, when you want to take bath, it is very swiftly flowing river and could be very deep also, depending upon that particular spot where you want to take bath. So they put a bamboo across. They fix a bamboo. They put some poles. You will not be able to see the poles. Only the bamboo will be floating. And it is tied. And it stays there. It is aligned with the flow of the river. And so, now they say, that one person stands there from the government side. He will tell, don't go, you take bath this side of the bamboo. This side of the bamboo is bathing ghat. It is called bathing ghat. The other side of the bamboo is not bathing ghat. That is the river. This is the bathing ghat. That is the river. Don't go to the river. Stay inside the bathing ghat only. Why do you want river? You want bathing ghat, you know. So this side. That is how they talk. So now the river appears to be divided into a bathing ghat and the full river. It appears to be divided by that bamboo. This is the division between Ishvara and Jiva. I could not find a better illustration than this. This is Sri Ramakrishna. So, you are the presence, like the bathing ghat. God is the presence. That is the river. Nature is like river. Therefore, what is the difference between the two? The presence called Jiva and the presence called Ishvara. You have to arrive at the presence. If you do not arrive at the presence, there is no Advaita. There is only Dvaita. I told you the example, the husband of such and such. So I am the presence and Ishvara is the presence. What is it that divides? The bamboo-like ego. That is what is divides. Ego is also awareness. Ego is awareness of ego. Ego is also the presence. But the presence truncated by all kinds of identifications. That is the presence. The egoic presence. So it is the ego which stands like the bamboo dividing. And suppose you are the pure presence. Instead of saying my who, you say my high. You say high. My he, my. One Mahatma said, my he, my. Everything is I am. I am everything. All existence, I am. That comes automatically. That will come readily because that is the truth. So now you remove the bamboo, it is one river. Just bamboo you remove. They remove it when that bathing ceremony is over. The government person, somebody will knock off that bamboo. They will take away. Because next day, the bathing is only for today. Amavasya day only bathing. Next day, no bathing. Therefore, somebody will take away that bamboo. On an auspicious day, they take bathing in Ganga, normally. So, that way, when there is no ego, you are one with God. This is what happens when you go for that darshanam of the temple. So, Lord Balaji, Venkateshwara Swami darshanam. You have to stand in queue for a few hours. And then you are already tired and very excited that because you are waiting. And then you look at Venkateshwara Swami. And all that tapas, tapas is there. The tapas, it makes the occasion very special. It is a climax. And in that climax, the ego is not there. That bamboo is gone. And there is unity. You are one, you are the same as Lord Venkateshwara. There is no division. It all depends upon your ability to allow that bamboo to go away. Whereas somebody dasoham, and so he remains dasoham only. Even he sees Venkateshwara Swami, he is there and I am here and I am dasa, he is there only. There is no communion. So in that case the bamboo remains intact. It is not going to be removed. It is a permanently fixed bamboo it is now. It is not a temporary arrangement even. But if you don't fix it so permanently, and if you allow it to go, it will go. And that tapas of 4 or 5 hours, that austerity kind of hard life of 4 or 5 hours, it prepares the occasion for the removal of this ego. The ego vanishes. Ego is vanished. There is no ego. And at that time, there is no division. The bamboo is gone. That is the truth. And you have to make it permanent. You have to make it real for you. That's all. So otherwise, there is no reason why there is any division between one presence and the other presence. What is the division between Ghatakasha and Mahakasha? Mahakasha is the presence, Ghatakasha is the presence. What is the difference? There is no difference. No, Ghata is the difference. Ghata is not the difference. You ask the Ghata. Ghata says, Ghata doesn't say, I am here, you take me into account. Ghata is Jada. It doesn't say anything. Dehona janati. You create the division for yourself. So, you can say, as a poet said, I am the unseen spirit which informs all subtle essence. I flame in fire. I shine in sun and moon, planets and stars. I blow with the winds, roll with the waves. I am the man and woman, youth and made, the babe newborn, the withered ancient, propped upon his staff. This is a mantra, Rigveda mantra. Tvam kumara utava kumari, tvam jirno dandena vanchasi, tvam stri, tvam pumanasi. Like that there is a mantra. In that mantra he put I and translated into a poem. I am whatever is. That whatever is, I am. Whatever is the Namarupa. Is the summons, the substance, summoned substance of the Namarupa, like gold. The black bee and the tiger and the fish, I am. The green birds with red eyes, the tree, the grass, I am. The cloud that hath the lightning in its womb, I am. The seasons and the seas, I am. In me they are. In me they begin and they end. Swami Ramatirtha. So, there is no division in the presence. It is the same presence. Appears divided, but really not divided. That satta, that presence, is Ishvara. The same thing is called bhava in Gita. So, param bhavam, mama bhuta maheshwaram. I said it earlier. The bhava, the presence. Good. We'll go to the next verse. Na jiva brahmanor bhedaha spurti rupena vidyate spurti bhedena manam syat iti vedanta dindimaha. You see, there is the jiva. Now, as long as the jiva looks at himself in terms of multiple identifications, he cannot even possibly consider the oneness. You cannot even consider it. It is not even an option, the oneness. Because he identifies himself so badly with multiple things. So, you see, suppose I say, I am Brahmana, suppose I say. Then, which Brahmana? Another question. Andhra Brahmana. Oh, Andhra Brahmana, it's okay. We are all Maharashtra Brahmanas. We are different. I am Andhra Brahmana. And then Andhra Brahmana means which Andhra Brahmana? So, like this, if not Brahmana, something else. Some region. I am a Punjabi or a Madrasi. If not that, some religion. I am a Christian. What do you mean by Christian? You show me where is Christian? Where? Is it impressed upon your forehead or what? You think you are Christian, that's why you are a Christian. Right? If not Christian, Hindu, whatever. So what do you mean by that? So it is not inherent in the fundamental sense of I am. So a child is born. What is he now? Is he a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or what? What is he now? What is he? So parents decide what is he. And then inform him. And he adopts it. Not that he has known. You see, the child is sentient. Not a Christian, not a Hindu or anything. It is sentient. It is, and it knows that it is. The child is sentient. That is what it is. It is not even a human being. It is just a sentient being, the child. Sentient being. Being we have seen. Now we have to see the sentient in the verse. So topic has not changed, only the word has changed. From satta we have come to spurti. The same topic. So the sentient being. You see, the child is a sentient being. That is what it is. It is sentience. Spurti. We are all sentient beings. You see, a philosopher told, I like the word human being. That is what he told. I like the word human being. Because it is so close to the truth. Human being is just one step away from sentient being or living being, sentient being. Suppose you say, I am Andhra Vaidika Brahmana. Suppose I say that is what I am. Andhra Vaidika Brahmana of Bharadwaja Sagotra. Now, how far you are from that sentient being, you tell me? How far you are... I'm not saying anything against anything. Please don't misunderstand me. You have separated yourself so far from the truth. Instead of keeping the Namarupa as Namarupa in their place, they are superimpositions, they are incidental, not real. And therefore abiding as the pure sentient being, that is what I am supposed to do. Then the next step is only very easy. The oneness is you can reach it. The oneness you can reach it. You have to reach that summit of pure sentient being. It is a freedom. Moksha will come and some more freedom will come, that is all right. But this is a freedom. Now I am free. So there is no freedom in putting so many bonds around you. There is no freedom. So anyway, therefore, so I am the sentient being. You see, in life, we highlight the differences. Like, I am a Andhra. What are you? I am a Malayali. So we highlight that. We highlight the difference. So always highlight the difference. I am rich. What are you? He is richer. So you highlight the difference and become small and become jealous. Always our jealousy, our desire. I want a Mercedes Benz. Why? Because he has a Mercedes Benz, whereas my car is a jalopy. I am not happy with it. So you highlight, it is running all right, you know. But no, it doesn't look good. So you highlight the difference and so become jealous of the other person. Become desirous of an object because you highlight the difference, and become afraid of something else because you highlight the difference. Whole life you are highlighting the differences. So one Mahatma said, in India there are no Indians. You don't come across an Indian. You have only Punjabis, Madrasis, Odisha people, you have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Parsis, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists. You have that only. You don't have, you don't come across an Indian. Because we highlight the differences. We highlight the differences. So, when the agitation for the division was going on, somebody said, we are all Indians. Then all the other people are down. So they made him down. Like if you go to India and say, I am an Indian, then they will come and beat you left and right, black and blue. What are you talking like that? Is it so? So highlight the differences. You should not do that. You have to highlight the commonality. Like Sri Krishna's verse, Vidyavinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva. What is the commonality? Sama. Sama is the common. Same. You have to highlight the sameness. We are all the sentient beings. That is what you are. So, you see, your ideas about yourself. You have an idea about yourself. I am this and this and this. So your ideas about yourself change from day to day and from moment to moment. You know, once I was associated with a gentleman. He was secretary to Andhra Pradesh Brahmin Association. He was secretary. And so some association. If not Brahmin, you can take some other association also. Just I am telling something which I knew. So he was secretary. He said, all Brahmana, 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 Brahmana. So then what happened in the committee, there was a fight. And they have impeached this guy. They have dismissed him from secretaryship. In the board meeting, he is no more our secretary. They asked him to resign. He refused, and so they impeached him. And so from there onwards, he tells me, hey, what is these divisions, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and all that? We are all Indians. Like that. And I said, okay, good. Something you have learned from a lesson, from an experience, some good lesson you have learned. Not bad. That is good. So, this is what I am saying. You have an idea about yourself. You have an image about yourself. Let us call it self-image. Okay, you call it. So, but be careful. If you call it self-image, then you have to, the immediate corollary will be, you have to dismiss it as unreal, because you cannot be an image. Okay? You cannot be an image. You can be only real. Or you assume that you are an image. So, therefore, you are not an image. You are the real. My God, image is a shadow. And this blessed image, it changes by the day. And sometimes by the moment. It changes by the moment. Your self-image is the most changeable thing you have. Even the car that you run, it doesn't change that fast. As fast as the self-image changes. Most changeable thing that you have. You see, I tell you, I have a self-image. I am a Mahatma, this and that. Suppose I have a self-image. Then a passerby says something. And my self-image is shattered. Right? It happens like that. It is just shattered. I lost all my enthusiasm, all my Mahatmanas or whatever, and now I am shaken and I am disturbed. Oh, how can he talk like that? You see, the self-image, how vulnerable it is. So, a passerby says something and the self-image, it changes. A bereavement, the self-image totally changes. You become a ghalib. You know ghalib? Ye na thi hamari kismat. Something like that. You become a ghalib. The self-image totally changes. I am a Hyderabadi, you know. So I know a lot of ghalib. The self-image totally changes. A bereavement. The loss of job, say. The self-image changes. It is not the same self-image. Or an insult. Somebody insults. The whole world appears down now. Oh, how can I be insulted like that? I thought I am impregnable. I am unassailable. And this guy doesn't know anything. He insults me. The self-image, all that confidence, all that arrogance is shaken. So, therefore, a dip in the stock market will change the self-image very badly. You see, I tell you, there is a thing called old age, jara. Vyagriva tishtati jara paritarjayanti. This jara, it is like a crash. You are something up to a point, and then there comes a crash. You are not the same guy anymore. Your self-image changes. I will spread the vision of Shankara all over the world. That was the self-image. But now, oh no, Shankara is doing fine. Let me have some medicine. The self-image changes. Really? So, that's why an ideologue is not a good self-image. An ideologue. Self-image you cannot sustain, that is one thing. And an ideologue could be dangerous also. because he will divide. An ideologue will divide. Anyway, so first you should investigate. First you should know that you are not the self-image. That image you have about yourself, you are not. You are pure awareness. Spurtihi. You have to come there. Spurti rupena. You are the pure awareness. And so, in fact, you are the ocean of awareness. Spurti rupena. So, you see, once again, I will tell you, you have to look at yourself about that awareness. Suppose somebody insulted you. This I told, I suppose. But even if I told, it doesn't matter. Let me repeat. Somebody insulted me. So, that is a problem now. The insult is a problem. It causes so much suffering. It's a problem. Purse is lost. Some money is gone. That is not a problem. But somebody has insulted me. That is a problem. So somebody insulted me. Now, I will tell you how to solve this problem. Instantly you can solve it. Do you want a method to solve that problem? Okay, I will tell you. I can solve it in a flat 5 seconds. How? Insulted me. So there is an insult only when there is the center. There must be the center. Without center there is no insult. The center. And so close the eyes, look at yourself. Allow the center to dissolve. Don't ask me how, just do it. There is no how, just do it. Allow the center to dissolve. Be pure awareness. And then, once the center is dissolved, now you be aware of the insult. Oh, he is insulted. Insult. There is an insult, it won't disappear. It is there. He said it or somebody did it, something he has thrown at you or whatever. There, an insult is an insult. It is there. Be aware. You know what happens? You will smile at it. You just smile at it. There is nothing to be done about it. You just smile at it. Because insult to whom? There is no center. This is what is called centerless awareness, choiceless awareness. Because we want honor. You choose to be honored. And somebody has insulted you. That is something which you don't want. Therefore you are in trouble now. Whereas I don't have any choice. I am not looking for honor and I don't choose honor. Therefore I don't choose insult also. I don't choose anything. A choiceless awareness. Desireless awareness, egoless awareness, space-like awareness. That is what I am. That is the truth really. That is the truth. It is so unfortunate that we have moved away from the truth. Therefore you have to consider the untruth very seriously and discard it and come back to the truth. So, therefore, realize yourself as the ocean of awareness in which all happens. Somebody honors you, it happens in the ocean of awareness. Somebody insults you, that also happens in the ocean of awareness. You are that spurti in which everything happens. It is not difficult. What I am saying is not difficult. A little of attentiveness is needed. You need to have a close observation of yourself. That is all what you have to do. You closely observe yourself. Attentively observe yourself. You will see that everything is happening in your awareness. So an insult is like a wave in that ocean of awareness. And honor is another wave in that ocean of awareness. There is no reason to be unduly enthused by the one or feel sad about the other. There is no reason. Everything happens in that ocean of awareness. So, that you have to realize. First you have to settle the aham, the I, you have to settle well. Once you settle the I correctly, then Ishvara is also a sentient being. You don't want a Jada Ishvara And so the oneness becomes very spontaneous. So I will finish this verse in tomorrow's class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.